And any youngsters who come to me that, please guide us how to open it, I say first, don't do anything. Just learn the word, log in and create your account on the simulator.
But there are also a lot of structural and a lot of cultural barriers that women face.
Even today, if you look at the country, about 40, 45, 50% women, before they step out of the house, they need to seek permission. And women, I'm not talking about teenage girls, it's women who have to take permission from their male counterparts, whether it's a father, brother, husband, whoever.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malia Farooq, and we are at the Connected Current podcast by Brand Scenario. This is an invite only podcast where we invite guests from the C suite director level positions and start the conversation going in terms of lifestyle, marketing, food, fashion, anything that has value addition to our listeners. My first guest today is Raida Latif. She heads brand management and social impact at Standard Chartered Pakistan. She is an old friend of mine. We've been associated with each other for 18 odd years now, and I'm really excited to have her on the show. So let's welcome her. Hi, Raida. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you once again for agreeing to do this with me. While I was coming here, I had a thought that we've known each other for, I don't know what, 18 odd years now, but we've never had a chance to sit like this and discuss,
Anything.
what's happening in our lives, what projects we are working on, and most importantly, something that is extremely close to your heart, which is financial inclusion and women empowerment. I've always heard you talk about this. I think we've been on panels together where you've asked me questions and you've moderated a panel, you've been on panels. But tell me, I just read while I was coming here that 90% of the women in Pakistan, they don't have access to financial tools. Now that I don't think is a gap. I think it's a market that we've just failed to serve. Do you agree with that? And what's your take on that?
Okay, yes, definitely. That's not a market. That's not a sub-segment, or
Yes.
it's a whole market. It's an opportunity that we've lost as of now.
Absolutely.
And I think if we do not take remediation measures
Mhm.
soon, we will actually be losing out as a country, as an economy. I mean, if you look at the IMF report a couple of months ago, it was published that by 2030, if we're not able to close this gender gap
Yeah.
in terms of participation, it'll cost us about a 30% of our GDP. We can actually add 30% to our GDP by
Just by doing.
2030 if we're able to ensure inclusivity,
Oh my God.
gender inclusivity. Right now, women are invisible.
Absolutely.
Whether it's formal financial products, whether it's the economy, they're not there. They just
Hmm.
don't count.
They just don't count.
So,
That's
whilst we say that they don't have a seat at the table, this is from the corporate perspective. But when you look at the entire national level numbers, they're
yes.
dismal
Absolutely.
at each level.
At each level, which is what I wanted to come to, because it's like you said, it's not just a seat at the table at the C suite, but also in other sectors of the economy where they're actually invisible.
Yeah.
And that's sad to know. But having said that, if I could ask you, because both of us obviously being in the sectors that we work in, we are privileged because we do have, as they say, a voice that is heard and all that. But if you were to switch yourself, and if you were to switch wallets for a week with a person who is probably living in rural Pakistan, what are some surprises that we could see, and what are some of the learnings that probably we could take on from there?
I think if I switch wallets, let's assume that with somebody in rural Pakistan, I would see lots of envelopes with cash,
Yes.
money marked for purposes. This money, this envelope is for this
Yes.
purpose. This is for this purpose.
Absolutely.
I might see some IOUs, some lists of Kiryana stores.
Yes.
I could probably see a fee, challan reminder. I think it just kind of is a story of
Would you see a wallet?
resilience.
Would you see a wallet with savings in it or not? I'm keen to know whether
I
that would come
doubt.
into the hierarchy of envelopes or not.
No, I don't
No.
think so. Because that this is sustenance, this is resistance,
Yes.
this is it's relationships, it's
Yes.
community,
Absolutely.
barter, in terms of community. So I think it's and deep dignity, I would say. Because and I'd actually come back with the reality and this thought in mind that time is running out. We
Yes.
really need to ensure that we take some steps, some serious
Some
steps,
serious.
not just like a CSR tick box,
Not at all.
in terms of policies, in terms of access. These are the things that are missing. You see, we have products, we have digital apps, but they don't speak to the women in the language.
Yes.
They don't connect with them. They don't they're not structured around their lives.
Yes.
So the infrastructure is there, but that infrastructure negates their existence.
Absolutely. And you think language plays a big part in awareness for these products as well?
Of course it does. You have to understand the lives, the realities of their lives, and then connect with them.
Yes.
So whether it's a woman who's working at home, whether it's a woman who's that's total zero economic value that they do.
Yeah.
If you, I think I was reading a research from the PIDE, the
Yeah.
Pakistan
Yeah.
Institute of Development Economics, and they said that women actually have spent 3 hours of their day on an average uh, on unpaid work, which is not taken into account. And personally, if you ask me, I think it's much more than that. 6 hours, I would
I
say.
also think that it's much more
Much more than
because what
that.
gets reported is obviously fluffed up.
So it's a shadow economy,
It
really.
is.
It's a parallel economy where women are doing a lot
Yes.
at home, which is unpaid. Cooking, cleaning, all these tasks. They are tasks, but
Yeah.
personally, if you ask me, I always wanted to work in the proper sector because I thought that, oh my God, this work is zero economic value.
Yes.
What
Yes.
is it giving me?
And most of us still think on those lines, right?
Yeah, and so that bit is not accounted for. I think that's missing. The other thing I would say is the informal work that women do
Yes.
out of their homes. That is not being taken into account because obviously they're out of the total formal financial sector.
Formal sector,
So,
absolutely.
I think in terms of policy, in terms of language, in terms of infrastructure, we have to be more inclusive.
Absolutely. I think I echo the words that you're saying because this is what the aims were initially and to date, but I don't think we've done a particularly great job at trying to find, just finding a gap and then getting a structured way, and like you mentioned earlier also language, because yes, the products are there and the facilities might be there, but if I'm not able to understand what they do for me as an individual, I think that's also a lost opportunity.
Yeah, because you see, I would say all these structures. Well, I don't want to be biased that way, the positive bias, I would say,
Yeah.
but they're created by and for males, okay, for men.
Yes.
They don't resonate with the way women think. They don't
Yes.
resonate with the way women behave, women
Yes.
act. Women are very risk averse. They're smart. But they think of risk differently.
We've been tagged that way also, right?
Yeah.
That
So
that and there are certain characteristics which I believe have been attributed to women irrespective of where we are and what we're doing. We still have those tags associated with us, and I think that is and not just only in the informal structure of
in the
our
formal
sector, in the
economy
formal
as well.
sector as well.
Yes.
You and I both come from organizations that are well known, and the organizations that are doing their bit for financial inclusion, but unfortunately, like you mentioned, these biases stick on.
Yeah, they're
They
quite
do.
they go deep.
They go
They
much
really
deeper.
run deep, and it's very difficult to kind of uproot them and it's like proving yourself every day.
Absolutely.
And then there comes a time when you say, look, I'm another person, a human being,
Completely,
treat
yes.
me like a professional, not like
Yes.
a woman.
Yes.
Like there are men and women. No, we all at the table in the room are professionals, and we should be treated that
One
way.
thing that I've started doing is that I've started, not men and women like you said, but roles. So
Yeah.
probably a head of finance and a head of marketing. Let's sit on the table in those capacities rather than thinking about, how long my hair is and whether I'm wearing red lipstick to work or not. And unfortunately, as funny as it sounds, this is something that most of us have dealt with in our careers going forward. Do you agree? Have you ever
I
felt?
think I was too vocal and too scary for anybody to make any comments or smart remarks like that. But
Yes, yes.
yeah, I think yes, I've come across a lot of
Yeah.
juniors and subordinates who've faced such
Yes,
situations, and that's where I would like tell
of
them to
course, of
take it
course.
head on.
So, Raida, you've touched upon a really important topic. You've talked about unpaid care, you've talked about the informal retail sector as well. How do we calculate the economic value that these women are actually bringing to our formal sector?
Okay, first let's look at what kind of numbers these are. So, as I said, I was going through this survey that women have about three hours per day on an average. Okay, that is unpaid work, which I would say amounts to 180 hours a month. Okay, you need to have research and more surveys to get the actual real figures, because this is a very generalized
Hmm.
average number. And if you, this would be primarily on rural Pakistan also included, not the city and the urban centers. If you minus that, but if you add that and you bring it to a realistic level, and then you assign a minimum wage criteria to
Hmm.
that, so you're actually saying 30,000 a month is the notional value of this unpaid 180 hours, let's
Yes.
say. And from that you can actually arrive at what kind of work is being done which is not being accounted for.
Hmm.
Then on the other hand, there are home based workers. If you look at Pakistan, I would say there are more than 4.4 million home based workers. Okay, and out of these 4.4, 3.5, 3.6 odd million are just women. So just look at the proportion of women who are actually working from
Hmm.
home. They're working from home. And with women, what it happens is that they, whatever they make, they kind of 90% kind of goes back into the family well-being, economic well-being, school fees, better living standards, and so on,
Hmm.
into the community as well. Now, this has a certain number to it or a value. And I think the policy makers, these people need to actually go out and start using time based surveys, maybe shadow pricing mechanisms, to actually assign a notional
Yes.
value to this unpaid work,
Hmm.
and also take into account the home based workers. What kind of value are they adding? The, even if it's not in proper real
Yes.
numbers, real
Yes.
cash, but it is, you need to have a notional value for that. Once you're
Hmm.
able to do that, then you'll, and then you look at it through the policy lens.
Yeah.
Okay, that how do you quantify it? How do you bring it into the real GDP? How do you ensure that it is monetized properly?
Yes.
And then when you look at the home-based workers, how do you bring it in, bring that into the financial, formal financial structures? And it's perfectly doable. It's totally
Hmm.
doable. I mean, if somebody says it's not doable, I won't believe that.
Hmm.
But it needs a lot of groundwork, and that's what I would say is missing. Because once you have these figures, this proper researches and studies done, then you sit down at the table at the policy level, and then you devise strategies, you devise infrastructure to actually create access. And once you have your products, you have access through digital technology. Today, you can do everything through
Hmm.
digital technology. So, why not harness that to bring this huge. I wouldn't call it a gap. It's a whole market that's
It's the
not
whole market, yeah.
formal, that's not visible.
Yeah.
So make it visible, and that'll help us as a country, I would say.
Mhm. You've spoken a lot about numbers and how to monetize it. I'm very interested to know, how do you actually assign this economic value to this, unpaid care or this informal retail? And I'm also very interested to know your thoughts on, if we do assign an economic value, do you honestly believe that that's going to change things?
Unless we start taxing them.
That's a
That's a
completely
word of caution.
different
You know what?
episode that we'll have to do on that,
The
right?
way the salaried people are being taxed right now,
That's what I said. We'll have to do
uh,
another
you
podcast
never
episode.
know, on this notional value they'll come and start assigning tax. And
True.
but no, I think through proper time based studies, it's possible. It's called either you can use the shadow method, shadow pricing method, because a lot of times, in the corporate sector also, there are ways of, let's say, the technology department supports business, so there are ways of quantifying the number of hours per hour, what is the price, and what kind of work is being done, what kind of developers are being hired. So if you look at it, the same thing can be applied into this assessment and research. And once they do that, then they're able to gauge the impact. And yes, I think that is doable.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. If there is a method to the madness, as they say,
Yeah.
then anything is doable. But you've got to at least understand the foundations of it to have anything built upon that. I completely agree with you. Radha, you've spoken, and I think both of us have spoken a lot about systemic barriers, but there are also a lot of structural and a lot of cultural barriers that women face. And I think there's been a lot of talk around this, and everybody has their own view of what those barriers are, what they look like, and also how to overcome those. I want to hear your thoughts on what you feel are the most important, these structural and cultural barriers that women face. In your point of view, what are those, and what do you feel can be done quicker, to sort of get that change and that ball rolling?
I think, yes, it's very important. There are a lot of women who work,
Yeah.
a lot of women who earn money, but the ability to earn money does not translate into them being empowered.
Yes.
So it's about the choice, it's about the control, and it's about the confidence. So I call it a triple C: the choice, the control, and the confidence to actually decide what to do with your money, how to spend it, save it, invest it, how to live your life, not seek permission.
Hmm.
So our patriarchal systems are designed in such a way, whether you call it cultural barriers or you call it care
Would
and
you also call it
protection.
structural barriers? Do you think those are
No,
there as
these
well?
aren't structural barriers,
No,
they
but
are
do you think
cultural
do you
limitations.
think beyond cultural and
There,
systemic, there
I'll come to that as
okay.
well. Okay, so call it care, protection, or patriarchal systems,
Yeah.
where women. I mean, even today, if you look at the country, about 40, 45, 50% women, before they step out of the house, they need to seek permission.
Hmm. Hmm.
Permission,
Yes.
not and women. I'm
And yeah.
not talking about teenage girls.
Yes.
It's women who have to take permission from their male counterparts, whether it's a father, brother, husband, whoever. They can't move.
Yes.
Okay, so that bit, I would say, one. Then you come to the next level, where the systems, you see, 90%, 85 to 90% of our country is SMEs.
Yes.
Now, these are family owned businesses.
Hmm.
When you have a family owned business, everything is run within that business. So the tax guy is doing the taxes. The women may be part of the what do you call the company. They
Yes.
could be an advisor in the capacity. They could be on the board, and on the books, their salaries are being processed, and the tax accountant, whoever, is actually a kind of preparing their tax returns also,
Mm-hmm.
filing that.
Yes.
Now, within that, now if she's working and earning, whether she's earning in the formal sector or if she's working like an entrepreneur, or even if she invests, now she can't invest formally. How
Yes.
can she do that? She's going to spoil the entire balance.
Yes.
It's balanced, right? So if she goes and opens a stock market account or a mutual funds account, how will she disclose that? Then it has to come back, and that particular return filing has to be adjusted. And then,
Adjusted.
how do you do that? So, which means she can't do it independently. She has to come and seek permission, or she has to inform. So anything she does on the formal financial market is visible.
Yes.
So how do you challenge that? How do you change that?
Yes.
In spite of products, you can't do anything about
You're
it. She
right.
has digital access. She can't do anything about it because the disclosure goes there.
The
You have a
disclosure.
CNIC, you
Yes.
have a UIN, you have a CGT is deducted. So all that is a challenge. That's your systemic,
That's
your cultural,
exactly.
but systemic as well.
Yes.
Then there are women who earn, but they don't manage their finances. The money goes to the joint account, or their debit card is with the male counterpart. I will not say it doesn't necessarily have to be a husband. It can be a
Yes, it
father,
can be
any male
any
counterpart.
male counterpart.
Because now there can be two reasons. One, she doesn't have the confidence enough that she can manage that money. That could be one reason. The other could be, कि तुम क्या करोगी?
तुम क्या करोगे?
How will you manage? You don't know nothing.
Hmm.
You don't know money matters. This is a man's job. By virtue of the head of the family, this is my job. So,
And I can do it better.
yeah, I can do it better. You will lose the money. Oh man, that's
And
and that
that's
kills the confidence.
and
Even
Raida, that is a very important aspect because you mentioned confidence, right?
Yeah.
Because whenever somebody will come back and tell you that you'll do it wrong and I'll be able to do it better, you'll automatically lose your confidence.
Yeah. And this is something I tell everybody I meet, okay? Well, mostly women. It's okay to make a loss.
Yes.
It's perfectly okay. You go and announce your losses, the men hide their losses
Yes.
better. It's not like they don't lose money.
True.
Trust you me, women in households are richer than men, but they've very silently, quietly, undocumented methods may they buy gold, they save,
Yes.
they and they are, if you look at our businesses,
Hmm.
I mean 80 to 90% businesses that are large today, the seed capital of that business came from their mother's savings.
Yes.
You ask anybody.
No, you're
So
absolutely right.
it goes back, and it again proves my theory that women are more smarter at
Yes.
investing. They're more careful. They're more responsible.
Yes, yes, yes. I love the line when you say that women announce their losses and men hide their losses. I think
Yeah.
that is something that is very true because that is what happens. And we as women, we get scared also, and we, when
Yeah.
once we make a loss, we want to announce it to ensure that we don't get into a bigger loss or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely fine because at the end of
You
the day, a
hear
financial decision anybody can make it, and
Yeah.
anybody can make it right, and anybody can
Exactly. Nobody can time markets, really.
Yes.
So men also lose a lot of money. And you must have heard of so many
Yeah.
men. Oh, they invested in this business, loss ho gaya, the partner ran away,
Yes.
and they had a heart attack. And please, come on. I mean, so
Yes.
many men have heart attacks because
Yes,
of the
because
or
of
nervous
that.
breakdowns because of that.
Because of
So
that.
it's not like they're very smart or
Huh.
astute.
No, not
So
really.
it's there you go.
Okay, great. So do you also believe the fact that money that the informal sector sort of borrows does not is sort of stretched to the last rupee and not really saved to have any changes made in the lifestyle in the long term? Do you believe that that happens, or you feel that if they borrow money for their day to day, they tend to sort of use it in a way that plans their future, or do you feel that it's money borrowed, that is just borrowed for their day-to-day necessities, and that's how it is, and that is the purpose for which it gets borrowed?
In the informal sector?
Yes.
Not really. Not necessarily.
Okay.
It depends. You see, a lot of, if you look at Pakistan, I mean, even South Asia, look at Bangladesh, the microcredit firms, they have a very, I would say, sound financial
Hmm.
ecosystem when it comes to microcredits. They've activated it for women, and from a financial inclusion perspective, I would say that the same thing would go for Pakistan.
Yes.
I mean, you talk to any microfinance or microcredit organization, and they will say that women are the better clients.
Hmm.
They come back again and again. They pay they utilize the line or the limits that they have. They expand their business. They come back, borrow more. They enhance their limits. They reallocate it,
Yes.
reinvest it in their business, and further expand it. And they're very good. They have a
Responsible
good
in this
credit
way.
history.
Yes.
And so these organizations find it, like from a risk averse perspective, they find it better and easier to reissue those loans to the
Yes.
women. So any number, any company you speak with, you'll get these kind of numbers.
Okay.
So I think, yes, that's there. But again, coming back to the challenges, so yes, there's this cultural, there's the systemic barriers, the permissions, women don't own properties also. You
Yes.
see, they even only 3% women exercise their inheritance rights.
Rights.
In family structures, they don't get it. They don't go and claim it either.
They don't go and claim it.
So 3% is like a dismal number.
Very,
I
very
mean,
low, yeah.
so your religion has given you, Sharia has given you, but the men can manage it better.
Hmm.
So they don't have that again. So it's access.
Yes.
And then mobile wallets, 48-50% men have it, only 20 or 18% women have mobile wallets. Bank accounts, 13% women have bank accounts, adult women,
Yes.
whereas larger number of men have it. Why? Because when they go out to open an account, they have to give out documentation, they have to have proof of job, they have to show the bank statement. And सबसे important, I must tell you this. You and I can go and open a bank account because we have our credit histories and
Yes.
everything. But an average woman, when she goes out to open a bank account, generally they're told, कि जी, like proof of income दिखाएं.
Income, yes.
अरे, hello, this is like my money. Income?
Yes.
I saved from my husband, or
Yes,
or I
yes.
got it from my dad. Now, how do they prove
How
it?
do they prove it?
So
Absolutely.
then they have to go get their husband's job card or something, letter or something that would prove that, okay, I have money coming in.
Oh, yes.
You go for a loan, women don't have collaterals.
Yes.
You go to buy property. Oh, that is the classic. बीबी आदमी को लेकर आए.
हाँ.
ठीक है.
This is
So
a
they
classic line that we hear, no?
don't you have any men in your house to bring?
Yes.
So why don't you bring your men? They understand. Even these real estate agents don't want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
They feel really awkward talking to you.
Yes.
So this is another challenge.
Hmm.
So I mean, I would say if I list it down, it's
Yes.
not just family or culture or anything. It's
much more than
it's
that.
much more than that. It's a whole kaleidoscope of
Yeah.
challenges that women have out there.
And you've actually brought about a very valid point when you said that women like us who are in organizations who can prove their salary or their income with an employment letter are probably in a much better space to do it. And these are things that we take for granted, because we know that we'll ask our HR head to give us an employment letter. We'll get there, our 3 month salary slips are there. Even digressing a little bit, but even for a visa application, I find it very easy because I have my travel history, but that has been created based on the fact that I have been working for about 18 odd years, where I have a employment history to prove a certain level of income that I get, and also the fact that I am able to sustain and go and do that. So I think that is also a big challenge that women must be facing.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, they ask you. I think they have a question: who will support you?
who is accompanying you?
Who will support this trip? Financial support. So you
Yes,
have to like,
yes.
what does a housewife do?
And I think that these are questions in application forms that we take for granted and we
Yeah,
answer, but none of us actually sit and think, why are we even answering these questions? What is the need to sort of justify who is accompanying or who is bearing the cost of my travel? And I know that for us it's easy because, like I mentioned, we have substantiating documentation to prove that, but for others it might probably be a bigger challenge.
I think yeah, that's the thing. We are present and visible in the formal financial infrastructure, keh lo, or
Yes. Huh.
landscape, keh lo. We're visible, so we don't have that challenge, luckily.
Yes.
But 90% of our women have that challenge.
Yes, and
And
and like you mentioned, we take this for granted because we are in the formal sector and we don't face these on a day-to-day basis.
yeah,
And it must be very difficult for the 90% of women, like you mentioned, to go through this on a
and
day-to-day.
even from an entrepreneur's perspective, I mean,
Yes.
you look at the private equity funds,
Hmm.
women-led businesses, only 3% are able to
Yes.
get money,
Yes.
raise
Raise
equity
equity.
from private equity firms. Now, same if you have a home-based business, how do you go and you have an income?
Hmm.
But you're either teaching and
Yes.
stitching clothes or designing stuff,
Huh.
and that's not visible. So how do you go and prove at
Yes.
these different uh, whether it's travel, whether it's banking, whether
Yes.
it's investment, where how do you prove your income?
Yes.
So I mean, it's in Pakistan that's a challenge. In the West, it's not. It's
Hmm.
not like in the West people don't work on cash. They
They
do,
do.
and the banks accept that money, those transactions, and those transactions are declared in your
Hmm.
filing at the time of filing your returns.
Yes.
But once it comes into the system, it's even if you don't, even if you keep the money at home, you disclose that.
You disclose.
Here, there's a challenge in
Hmm.
Pakistan because a lot of our, mm, I would say, a partial 50% more than that, we have a shadow economy, the parallel economy,
Hmm.
and we're not able to actually document it.
Document it. Yes.
We haven't been able to document it. So that is a challenge because you see, I wouldn't blame the country to a large extent because we're not documented as a country.
Hmm.
As a country, a lot of children are born and they're not registered at birth.
Absolutely.
How many people today would have their family registration certificate or their birth certificate or their everything updated?
Yes.
It's I'm not talking about, again, not
No, no.
urban
Yeah.
centers, but you move out of the main urban centers and you see a lot of these girls or don't have, even boys for that matter, don't have the national identity cards.
CNIC.
When they go out for jobs, they need it. The
Then they
girls need it when they are getting married.
married. Yeah. For the
Nikah ke liye.
Nikanama. Absolutely. No, no, you are absolutely. And not a lot of people also understand, that the family tree concept and
Yeah.
all. And these are things that should be there for our records and for documentation purposes, not just for the purpose of getting a job or to get married. And I think we've narrowed it down to very basic, necessities for us getting this very important documentation in our lives only for the purpose of getting a job or
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
or, or being registered for a marriage.
Yeah. Kar lenge.
This is the
The
tag.
normal narrative that you get to hear.
So Raida, you
Okay.
tell me, you've spoken about a lot of challenges, but and you've also spoken about a lot of financial tools that are available.
Yeah.
But do you feel that, most of these financial tools, when they are being designed, when they are being implemented, especially at the designing phase, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
they're being done without, the input of these women.
Yes.
And how do you agree with this? And if you do, how much do you think it'll have an impact if that is taken into account? And how do we do it?
I think very, if I mean, very simply, I can give a broad outline or a map from that perspective. So, from creating products, you have to have very flexible microcredit products
Hmm.
available. Now, those products should be kind of in sync with the way women businesses or women income comes in, and those cash flows,
Yes.
they should take into account how the cash flows are managed, and they should work accordingly, not the regular standard approach that they take. So it's called flexible microcredit tool. Okay. Then low literacy interfaces. Now you have all these jargons written. You open a digital investment app, they'll say NAV.
Yes.
Now, hello, what does the woman
What
know?
does a woman?
You need to maybe use simple terminology. Debit, credit. Why can't you say
In and out.
in and out, deposit, nikalo, withdraw? I
Hmm.
mean, like,
Easy words, easy
matlab,
terminology.
all that bit. Simplify it. Who understands debit, credit? I mean, simply, you and I would,
Yes.
but either that, or because you can't really go and educate everybody right away. So yes, those who miss that education, you have to simplify things for them, remove the jargon, use their local languages, have icons, have tutorials. I mean, I generally say that you have 30 tutorials for every step. Little reels ka zamana hai aaj. You use
Bilkul.
digital methods, have
Yeah,
little
yeah.
small reels. This is how you open an account. That's what I was doing at the stock exchange. This is how you deposit. This is how you trade. This is how you, and then simulations,
Yes.
virtual, and then not in Angrezi.
Not in
Please,
English. I was
in
about
their
to say, yeah.
local languages that they would understand with the right icons. That's that. Then uh, uh, another angle I would say is to give them group based saving options. So because you see, in that part of the country, I would say majority part of the country, women, they move in communities. Even for references, KYC purposes, you ask for documentation, they can't give you documentation. But if it's a community referral,
Yes.
that will help her.
That will help her. And that
That'll be
builds and
easy.
that builds confidence also, na?
Yeah.
Because you're doing it as a group. So
Yeah.
you lose
So
as a
there's
group.
your group based saving. Then in terms of loans and credits, you have referrals, you have community people.
Yeah.
Take reference from community people.
Yes.
And then you build it up, of course.
Hmm.
Keep your risk parameters there. But then again, women don't have collateral also. So then you need to work around that. What could be her collateral? It could be her. It doesn't have to be in kind. It could be her historic behavior patterns.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Reliability.
I couldn't agree more. That either you've spoken a lot about financial inclusion. It's one question that comes to my mind is that we are sitting in a very nice air conditioned room belonging to very privileged backgrounds where we've had the opportunities in life to actually reach a particular level and speak about it. What tips and tricks can you give to people other than policy shifts? Because we generally have this notion that the government should do something about it, or the system is to be blamed. What can you tell people like us who can in our own capacities probably make some kind of a change and make that ball rolling for financial inclusion? And if you've ever done this in over the span of your career, maybe you've helped somebody regarding financial inclusion, would you like to share something that has actually made that impact other than policy and systemic changes?
I think that's where your very good this thing comes in. Yes, I say there's a policy shift needed. There's a mind shift needed.
Absolutely.
And that is something which the government does policy, but putting that policy into practice is what falls on our at our end, right? And I think from my perspective, if I speak for myself, um, this is something at my work, my previous job, I started the entire financial literacy initiative there, where we went to schools, colleges, universities in the attempt to inculcate basics 101.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were not talking about the capital market. We were talking about why you need to save, why you need to invest that saving, what is your interest rate, what is a discount rate, how it impacts your asset classes, what is an asset class, how do you build portfolios, how does each different asset class work.
Very important.
So, in a formal setting, this is something that I do. In an informal setting, whether it's my children's friends, mothers groups,
Mhm.
I talk about it. Whether it's my own friend circle, I keep encouraging them. Have you invested? Have you opened an account? Have you thought of it? What is good for you? What are the risk, if you're risk averse, what are the options available? Do you look at mutual funds? Explained all this thing to them. And I think giving back to society perspective also, I try my best. So uh, whether it's my staff at home, whether it's the people I interact with, I mean, this is one example I'll tell you. And women are very good learners.
Yes, absolutely.
This, the club I go to, there used to be like 10 years ago, there used to be this woman who would say, Baji, aap bank mein ho. She didn't know
Mhm.
that I was working for
Yes,
the
yes,
but
yes.
financial markets really. So can you advise me? I have X amount and I want to save it for my kid's education when he grows up. He's very young today, but I want to save up. So where do I save? And I will not name the
No.
company, but I called up this guy at an asset management company, and I told him, you go to her house, you will, or I'll send her, you open her account, do not invest her money in any volatile
Yes. High
mutual
risk.
funds,
Yeah.
extremely conservative, and do not move her money also, whatever amount she keeps putting, and explain her how to do it. And if you're able to teach her how to do it through her app, that's good. But just go
Manage it for
every
her.
month
Yeah.
and send a rider, pick up the check from her, uh, you know and she's a woman who sweeps.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the cleaner woman. The And I'd forgotten about it. I'd keep a check for a while, and it's been 10 years now. Her kid is going to be shortly going to college or
Oh,
whatever. So
wow.
once he's there for the profession, now she'll have some
Yes.
nest egg, I would say, whatever
Yes.
you call
Yes.
it, for his once he goes into that professional life.
Yes.
So I think that, and this is just one example.
Yes, of course.
There was another woman there who would say that, my husband is, he has some problems and he
Mhm.
can't walk, he can't do a
Huh,
job,
huh.
and I got this amount. So where do I put it for regular
For
income?
regular income.
So these are the little bit of things
How
that I
nice.
give back, and I don't take money or help them.
No, no,
I
of course not. Yeah.
ensure that they are
Yes.
independent. I don't want, and I'm not a finance manager really, but I educate them to that level
Mhm.
that they can then be cognizant and they can evaluate what the options are and how to go about it. I mean, today I've really speaking mutual funds, when you talk about mutual funds, a lot of people, even men for that matter, for a long time they didn't know they could get a tax rebate. Not now, but
Yes, earlier on.
they didn't know that how the balance fund works, how the asset allocation fund works, how the equity fund works, and how the fixed income fund
Yes.
works. So
Yes.
what's the difference between a government
Yes.
securities fund and a stock fund?
Yes.
People don't know.
People
And
don't
people
know.
don't really, I mean, although seriously speaking, I think it's all about everything is today in your hand,
Yes.
and it's about simplifying that language.
Simplifying
So
it.
for that
Yes.
woman, it's very difficult to
Huh, of
go
course.
through a mutual funds app which is in English.
That is what I'm trying.
Redemption.
Yes.
Now redemption, hello.
A lot of
And there's no
people.
Urdu, there's no
And one thing that I've noticed in a lot of apps, I obviously will not take any name, is that the option to change that complete interface into an
Yeah,
Urdu
Urdu.
interface,
Opt for Urdu. Yeah,
it
no,
is not
not there.
that option is also not there. So sometimes, because obviously I do digital audits and all, and I look at digital touch points, and my first question is, you and they tell me who the target audience is
Yeah,
also, and then I say, where is Urdu? And they say, okay, no, but this is how,
this is our
XYZ did it,
assumption.
and this is how another competitor XYZ did it. So we've sort of isi tarah, this is how it happens. And my question is that, if you have a particular target audience in mind that is not very literate in a particular language, then an option, yes, you should keep that option if you want to have a particular interface, but at least keep that option for them to change it if they want to feel. And words like redemption
Yeah,
and
nap.
and certain abbreviations are very difficult to remember, even for me,
Yeah.
at some
I
points,
mean, somebody who wants to buy sukuks
Yes, yes.
or T-bills, they don't know what is face value
No,
and what is like these
of
are
course.
terms they don't know.
These are terms that they
And
don't.
cut off yield.
No,
Please, I mean, a simple
I
guy wouldn't
sometimes I
know.
tell people, because I have an MBA in finance before I got into marketing, and my degrees in marketing. So I know, because I've done
Oh yeah,
courses in finance, so the discount rate and all those terms, face value, yield, these are
yeah.
terms that I know. But a lot of
These
people
are
in the
advanced.
general population don't know
Yeah,
this.
that's
And
true.
sometimes, even when you Google it, it becomes a little, if you've not studied it properly, or
Yeah.
somebody's not explained it, even a Google search is not going to give you, the
The
level of
proper
understanding
yeah.
that you want. And I think that is something that we should definitely look into.
Yeah, that's true. That's something every time I speak to any finance person in the capital markets or in the investment arena, I tell them, look, please don't use jargons. Simplify it. Simplify. That's
Simplify
the
it,
essence.
yes.
Whether you're able to, whether it's language, but even if it's in English, please simplify, and that is easy to explain. I mean, I think this is I'm on air and all, but my nieces and my nephews, I've helped them open their accounts. I've helped them study equities,
Yes.
asset management. And in fact, one of my nieces, I have a joint account with her, and I tell her that this is just to keep a check
On
that
what?
you invest and not redeem.
Yes.
So I've told the relation initially, I told the relationship manager, no redemption,
No
okay?
redemption.
If there is any redemption, you please tell me and talk to me before.
No, that's excellent, because this is what we can do in our personal capacity. And I always believe that whatever we do as individuals always has a spillover effect.
Yeah.
Whether we believe in it or not, that's a separate debate altogether. But I feel that that spillover effect is very, very important, because obviously through your nephew and nieces and just taking a random
Friends, kids.
Yes, yes. I think that is actually going to have that spillover effect.
Yeah, because that will be a snowball thing.
Yes.
They will talk to their friends. They will, the simulation game for that matter.
Yes, and I say,
They
even
want
if
to
there is a
learn.
Chinese whisper in that,
Yeah.
at least there is talk. That is my mantra in life, that you at least share some information, even if it goes through another person through a level of Chinese whisper. A percentage of that information gets sort of
Yeah.
transferred.
And any youngsters who come to me that, please guide us how to open it, I say, first, don't do anything. Just learn the words, the
Yes.
log in and create your account on the simulator.
Yes.
The virtual simulator, give yourself virtual money and trade or buy
Yes.
and invest, and then give yourself a month or two on that and see how you've fared well.
Yes.
How you've whether you've learned the symbols, the name,
Yes,
the
yes.
technical terms. How do you trade in an app?
And
What
then
is the
it's
commission?
virtual money also, na? So
Yeah,
you don't
so
have
there's
that
no loss.
fear of losing.
And then go and open your
Then
proper
one.
account.
I did that.
Okay,
I
good,
did
good.
that, and I did it because I wanted not just, but I wanted to just sort of conquer that fear that I had of investing. Whether I invest or not later, that was a separate issue.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to do it.
That's true.
And because I hadn't done it in a long time, I thought, I'll probably,
A
and it
lot of
actually
these
does help.
brokerage houses have
Yes,
their own simulation
all of
apps,
them.
so you're actually seeing the real thing. You're doing the having putting in a stop
Yes,
loss all
yes.
virtually, and then
And
it's real
subconsciously learning
market,
a
real
lot.
prices, real time
Yes,
activity, and within that you're working virtually. So
yes. And now the
that gives
market
you,
is just, you know
yes,
what it is.
it's beautiful.
But you're absolutely, because yes, that's what I feel, that in our own capacity, this is what we've done, and then it's a good feeling at the end of the day if you've helped somebody, who could not do it in their own capacity, and you've helped them reach a point where they sort of had that awareness on savings and how to save, even if it's a little, small amount, but you've
It
helped
matters
them
for them.
doing that. So rather tell me, if I were to ask you, because you look at social impact as well, right? If I were to ask you to reframe financial inclusion and women empowerment as a business opportunity, what do you think? I mean, how would you go about doing that? And what do you think? What shifts do you think we should make to sort of rebrand it, if I may use my marketing terminology here, as more of a CSR tick box option, but a business opportunity, like you mentioned at the start of the podcast?
Hmm.
What do you think? What shifts do you think we'll have to make, and how do you think that rebranding can take place?
So, I mean, okay, if you look at women, as I said earlier, also, they're 49% of your population. They don't have much access,
Yes.
not many of them have access to formal finance. Now, formal financial product does not only mean a bank account, it means a wallet,
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
mobile account, an easy pesa account for that matter. Having said that, they have their own setups, but they're not able to gather or apply for loans.
Yeah.
So, only I would say, if you look at the SME sector, only 1% of the SMEs are women owned
Yeah.
out of the entire segment. So,
Yes.
if you look at that, if you're a bank, I would say, while on one hand you need to have products,
Hmm.
you need to have digital onboarding for them, you also need to look at credit. Okay.
Absolutely.
Banks generally are reluctant in giving credit out to women,
Hmm.
because obviously there's no history, there's no
Yes.
documentation, the KYC, the risk, the collateral.
And a general skepticism also, I
Yeah,
believe.
that too. So I think microcredit needs to be looked at. If you look at India, I mean, in the insurance industry, uh, they made micro insurance part of every insurance company's
Yes.
portfolio.
Yes.
So every financial insurance company had to have a certain percentage for towards micro insurance.
Yes.
So rather than having a separate entity. So
Hmm.
similarly in Pakistan also,
Hmm.
it is banks have this requirement that they have SME units.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
within that SME units, maybe from a banking policy perspective, there needs to be a workaround for
Hmm.
women where
Yes.
they can be digitally onboarded, the collateral could be looked at differently, the risk could be looked at differently, and the structure of products could be
Hmm.
made slightly differently. So you need to talk to women and design for women,
Designed for women.
around women.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one. If you're a startup founder, or or if you're a private equity investor, I would say women are the best bet,
Hmm. Hmm.
because they're conscious, they're responsible. Even I mean, there was this another study that I looked at a couple of last week, and I was looking at this number that the women-led businesses, the kind of return per dollar they gave was
Yes.
much higher
Much
than,
higher.
more than double
Hmm.
than what male
I'm
startups.
so glad that you gave this statistic, because we'll have a comment later saying that she's saying women are better because she's one herself. So I'm
No,
glad
these
that,
are
no,
stats.
that's what
These
I'm
are
saying. I
proven.
think
Oh,
I'm a strong supporter of giving numbers out, because then that they sort of validate the claim.
yeah,
But
no, no,
rather, do
no.
you think that
It's
that
bad. Sorry.
reframing it as a business opportunity is
It is a business
yeah, you
opportunity.
think it's
Smart
it's
money.
it,
I mean, if it's somebody smart, they will know where to invest, and the women are their best bet
yes.
in terms of women founders. One thing I normally do not really, talk about, but here at the Standard Charter, there's a Future Makers program, and within that, we have a Women in Tech program,
Mm-hmm.
which started back in 2019.
Okay.
And within that program, every year, certain women, tech businesses, women-led tech
Mm-hmm.
businesses, are invited to apply. They are now the catch here is they're not just giving out grant money. They are coached, they are
I was
mentored,
about to come to
they
mentoring. Yeah.
they know, they're trained on how to manage uh, cash flows, inventory, how to structure their business, how to formalize their business ventures, how to scale up. And we don't give seed funding. We look at businesses that have reached a certain point,
Okay.
and
Okay.
these are women-led businesses. They're tech-based businesses. This year, we just started the seventh cohort of this
Mhm.
program. So within this, up until now, I would say till the sixth cohort, around 143 women-led businesses have been
Oh,
supported.
that's so nice.
43 have been have achieved and scaled up. They've received these grants from us, and all these are trained. Now what's happening is it's creating this whole community.
Yes.
It's a sisterhood. I like to call it a
Yes, it
sisterhood
is.
because the women businesses of cohort 1 are at a point where they can actually now mentor the
Mentor.
newer
Yes.
additions.
And mentoring is very important because I
Yeah.
keep on saying that, staying relevant is also very, very important. I mean, you can learn something a month back or something, but keeping it relevant to how the world is changing, and you're aware of that as well. I think that is very, very important, and mentoring does play a big, big role in doing that.
And that is what women need, that
That's what women need,
validation,
yeah.
that confidence, that little push. That's
Yes,
all.
yes,
They need to really believe in themselves.
yes.
They've been invisible, but and they don't call their businesses. They're entrepreneurs. They
Yeah,
don't
they
call
don't call
themselves.
themselves
They
entrepreneurs.
don't name themselves.
Yes,
So it's that's the
that's the thing.
missing link, I would
Yes,
say.
yes, yes.
So from that perspective, it is an investment, and I would say it's a good
It's a
investment.
good investment to have. Perfect, perfect. Now I want to, because we've obviously been speaking and we've touched upon a lot of very important subtopics within this topic that is, I know, very, very close to your heart. I want to now end this with a segment which is called mic drop moments. Now, what this mic drop moment is that I am going to ask you a question, but I don't want to give you a lot of time to think about the answer. So, the first response that comes to your mind is what I'm most interested in featuring on the podcast. So, I'll take a couple of give you a couple of questions, but I'd like the responses to be very, very quick, and just the first couple of words that come to your mind, or the first thought that comes, and we'll take it. How does
Okay,
that sound?
perfect.
Okay, one app or any platform that is, you think, actually closing the gap.
I think Easy Pesa, it
Hmm.
is one app that is literally breaking the financial barriers. It's creating access and giving financial access in the people, and especially underserved community women, in their hands.
Absolutely, I agree. Biggest barrier to women's financial freedom today? You just have to name one.
Lack of ownership,
Hmm.
whether it's property, digital tools, or access.
Okay, a project or a country that you think has done financial inclusion and women empowerment right.
I think Bangladesh.
Okay.
The microfinance, the policies, the digital integration, and the policy around it, I would say they've done it excellent for women in terms of creating that ecosystem of financial access.
Probably a model that we could also follow, yeah, because it's virtually
Similar.
same
Yeah.
markets. One myth about women and money you'd retire today.
That women don't understand risk.
Oh, that's
In reality, I would say women are strategic, responsible investors, and they ought to be considered that way.
I agree. It's a myth. Empowerment in one sentence.
Empowerment is when a woman doesn't need permission
Yeah,
to dream,
yeah.
to invest, to earn, to study.
To just be.
Yeah, exactly.
To just be, actually.
Yeah.
I agree. That's great. I think not so rapid, but yeah, we
Yeah.
actually we got what we wanted for. Once again, Raida, I want to thank you for taking time out and having this conversation with me. I feel really nice because we've, like I mentioned earlier, sat and discussed a lot of things, but I think the need of the hour was for us to sit and discuss something that is so close to your heart. I know you're doing a lot, and you've actually motivated me in my own capacity to do whatever little I can do in terms of financial empowerment and inclusion. And I look forward to connecting with you. And thank you once again for being
You're
here.
welcome. It's been a pleasure being here and talking my heart out.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.